The African National Congress will reimburse the government for using a military jet to transport top officials to Zimbabwe. The party admits that using military resources was unusual. Luthuli House has also confirmed that the ANC delegation, led by the Secretary-General Ace Magashule, is in quarantine as per lockdown rules. Now, party members flew with the Defence Minister to Zimbabwe to have talks with ZANU-PF over human rights abuses. Meanwhile, the Office of the Public Protector will continue to probe this incident, despite the ANC saying it will repay the money.
I'm totally not aware of that, but if the information is public, it's out there, I suppose the investigation team will get hold of it, but it does not change anything, because all that we will be interested in is whether what offer was in line with the prescribed applicable policies. The idea behind our investigation is always to advise those that are in power so that in the future we do not have a recurrence. So irrespective of whatever amendment may be made, the investigation will still be valid. Important to establish what happened and to check if what happened is in line with the laws of the country, the policies, and if not, what should be the remedies going forward, so that, as I say, we should avoid a similar occurrence in the future.
Now, the calls from political parties and civil organizations for the ANC to explain the circumstances around its trip to Zimbabwe, including the alleged flouting of COVID-19 regulations applicable to international travel. As we continue tracking that story, I'm joined by ANC Spokesperson Pule Mabe. That might be a pleasure to have you on the program this evening.
Evening, and evening to your viewers.
Now, the ANC has committed to paying back the money for the costs incurred on behalf of your delegation, but your statement stops short of apologizing for the alleged abuse of state funds. Is this a fair assessment?
Well, the delegation that was led by our Secretary General, Ace Magashule, yesterday briefed the national officials around the trip to Zimbabwe, including the positive undertakings that shall have been made out of this trip, as well as the cordial nature and the character of the meeting that they had with ZANU-PF. Because there are a number of positive takeaways coming out of this trip. This was not about strengthening the position of the ANC. It was more about consolidating regional stability. Yeah. As part of that engagement, a decision was arrived at that we should humble ourselves before the people of this country, understanding that the travel would have happened under extremely difficult and different circumstances, that we reimburse government for whatever costs that would have been incurred arising out of the travel itself. This is to show that we are a responsible party, and that all of the actions and our own undertakings are meant to fulfill the interest of the people of South Africa, Zimbabwe, and Africa as a whole.
But it's interesting, Mr. Mabe, that the party does concede that this trip was unusual.
Well, of course, it was unusual in the sense that we were visiting that country to have bilaterals, which bilaterals, one, have produced a number of results. One of the significant results is that there is now a shared understanding between ourselves and Zimbabwe that the ANC will, in the foreseeable future, be visiting Zimbabwe to engage with the opposition and other stakeholders who are interested parties in that country, but also we had agreed to respect the sovereignty of both countries, and that Zimbabwe is in no way an extended province of the Republic of South Africa. That all of us commit to human rights, support the upholding of freedom of association and the freedom of speech. Because these are important tenets of consolidating and strengthening our own region.
But is it not unusual in the sense that you have a party delegation accompanying a government minister on official business to meet with the ruling party in Zimbabwe?
Well, I wouldn't say that. I think vice versa. The ANC in its own NEC had already taken a decision on the need to have this bilateral. So the ANC was out there to fulfill a party mission in this way. That is why the ANC is coming out and saying that it will facilitate such a reimbursement for the trip that has been undertaken. But it must be understood, even on the same token, that the ANC undertook this trip to fulfill the interest of the rest of South Africa's people, not only of its own members.
But what happens now? Has the money been paid, and how is the amount going to be deduced? How is it going to be determined?
Well, we have already communicated the issue of the reimbursement today. The custodian of finances in the African National Congress is the Office of the Treasurer General. One would assume that there will be those kind of engagements, and once the quantum is established, the ANC will then move to fulfill its own commitment as it has conveyed out to the public.
Now, in your statement, you also allude to the fact that this was a mission accomplished, describing the trip as being successful. Can you just tell us about the outcomes of that particular meeting?
Well, the success of the trip, one is because we had all agreed to respect the sovereignty of both countries. The point I've made earlier, that Zimbabwe is in no way an extended province of the Republic of South Africa. They need to respect human rights, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and that the ANC will then be allowed in the foreseeable future to go back to Zimbabwe to engage with members of the opposition and all other stakeholders, because a strong Zimbabwe, economically, socially, and politically, breeds a stronger South Africa. So it is in our interest to see Zimbabwe working and have people succeeding and being able to provide for themselves in that country, the economy working and providing the much needed jobs. This was one of the consensus that has been arrived at by both parties. And we see this as an important milestone that characterized this engagement.
And as we wrap up, what was your assessment of the situation in Zimbabwe at this point?
Well, from the very onset and arising out of the statement, though the delegation had said that the engagement was held in a very favorable environment, quite cordial and friendly, and that there was a level of openness and honesty, frankness amongst the parties. This suggests that the environment in Zimbabwe is fertile for those that want to engage with a view of finding long-lasting or constructive solutions to whatever issues or challenges that could be attended to, whether it's economically, it's socially, and all of that.
The ANC spokesperson there, Pule Mabe, saying that the party will pay back the money